Right. Today I'm repairing an iPad Air, and this repair it's a repair that any person could actually do. There are important things that you need to take into account when performing this particular repair. So the first thing is the good thing with the iPad Air. I mean, it's an old iPad, but the concept is still the same. So this one, it doesn't have a fingerprint on the home button. So it makes it a bit of an easy one, because particularly if you are just doing a screen repair, what we call the digitiser, in most cases, the digitiser actually comes with a home button attached to it already, particularly with the iPad Airs. So just assuming you are repairing probably, let's say, an iPad 5th gen or 6th gen, usually with those ones, they come with a home button that's got the fingerprint sensor, the fingerprint sensor. And what you need to pay attention on is basically when you remove the digitizer, you gotta pay attention on the home button so that you don't rupture anything. And you've got to then reuse it. Just bearing in mind that every home button, every aftermarket home button, you lose the fingerprint sensor. So the purpose here, if you are doing a 5th gen, 6th gen, or any model above that, your priority is to ensure that you preserve the original home button, so that after you've done with the repair, everything looks original. Another tip when doing this repair, you could use a heat mat, and it all depends on how crazy you are in terms of how a fanatic you are. So if you've got a heating pad, you can easily just heat up the iPad at 80 degrees Celsius, okay? But just make sure you don't go over 3 minutes, because as you go over 3 minutes, you start to burn the LCD. So then you'll find, sometimes you could feel like you can see shadows just on the edges, around the edges of the LCD. So just make sure you don't go over 3 minutes at 80 degrees Celsius. Right. And there's actually you gotta find a way where you feel comfortable when removing this. There's no trick. You just have to find your way. The idea is to just try to ensure you pry it out, you save the home button, and you save the LCD. That's the priority. So it doesn't really matter how much you're gonna take, what strategy you're gonna use to take it out, so long as you save those things. Save the home button, save the LCD. What I actually like to do is to, once you pry it out, make an opening so you can actually remove the 4 screws on the LCD and then take that out. And after that, you can then take out all the little bits of glasses around the edges of the body there. So what I've done is, as you were watching, I've just pried it out. And now I'm going to ensure that the actual LCD is safe. So my priority now is to take the 4 screws, take the LCD out, and after do that, do a bit of more cleaning. And then I can actually now play and pry all the little pieces of glasses there, because I've got that out. And those are the most delicate parts. Now once you are done removing all the 4 screws, now gently lift up the LCD. And a tip, and I'll say this again, you've got to pay attention here. Remove the screw and disconnect the battery. It is vitally important that you disconnect the battery. It's a difficult area, particularly on an iPad, but what you could actually do is remove that screw and slot in a card in between there. You could use a credit card. Maybe a credit card could be a little bit thicker. What I like to do is to use just the playing cards. So just grab yourself a packet of good quality playing cards. They are quite a very cheap. They are a very cheaper tool to use. So as you can see there, I've got the 8 diamond there. Place it in between there so that you disconnect the battery. What that does again is that it actually ensures that you don't have a short circuit, because sometimes you can create a short circuit just by disconnecting the digitizer. And then what you could do is you may have backlight issues or other problems. So just save yourself the time and hassle, and just do the right thing right on the onset. Now that the digitizer is out of the way, just like I said there, that your priority is to remove the digitizer, ensure you save the LCD, ensure you save the home button. The only time that you may not have to worry about saving the home button if you are working on an iPad Air, so that one it doesn't have fingerprint sensor, and usually the digitizer comes with a new button. So now you could put that the body housing of the iPad, you can put it back on the heat plate, heat it at 80 degrees. It just makes it easy for you to pry all the little bits of glass just around the edges. Right, now as you can see, it just makes it much easy pulling all the bits of glasses. Another tip, just in case you don't have the heating plate, you could still use the hot air gun. Okay, you can just grab a decent hot air gun from, on eBay or on Amazon. You don't have to buy anything expensive. A heat gun is a heat gun, so long as you can. It can go to 200 degrees. That should be okay. Usually, if you're using the heating mate, 80 degrees will be enough, because when performing such repairs, you gotta just keep your work area clean. There's a part that I just deleted there where I've just cleaned up the work area, just to ensure that at least you know where everything is, and you pretty much know the drill. So just get rid of all that pieces of glass. Do whichever method you think works, for as long as you're using a combination of heat, a combination of isopropyl and heat, that should actually, get everything. And I like to also just use a toothbrush. I mean, you can use anything there just to give it a nice clean and ensure that you don't have any small glasses around the edges. Because otherwise, the new digitizer won't fit nicely. If there is a little glass left, then it's not gonna sit flush. So now we're just gonna replace with the new digitizer. So you gotta just check it out. Usually around the adhesive there's like a cover that covers the adhesive strip. You gotta just make sure that you've already removed that. And I should say your hands are your best equipments in here. As you plug in the digitizer, you gotta just use your hand to push it in. Just use your fingers, and it's just more like Lego pieces. How you join your Lego pieces, so you can pretty much tell that it's in. Just make sure it's nicely aligned. Be gentle, never use force, because some of these things, the moment that you find yourself using force, you're pretty much doing something that's you're not doing something correctly if you're using force. So, and you gotta also have to find a way of balancing the LCD and the digitizer. So you gotta find a way of multitasking using all your fingers. Find a way of as you put them in, you gotta have, as you can see here, I'm just using that where the sellotape is there. I'm using it more like as a resting for the digitizer, resting place for the digitizer. So you gotta just have to invent something in here. Just ensuring, obviously, you don't end up rupturing the flexi cables. So, right. So once you are satisfied everything is done, then you can now remove that card, that playing card there between the battery, and then put the battery screw. So everything looks pretty good at this moment. And we gotta just lay it back. And what I might do, you don't always have to do this, but if you see that on the digitizer there are like little spots, you could clean it lightly with either rubbing alcohol, or you could just use isopropyl. In some cases, you may actually be able to use methylated spirit. But you gotta just do it very lightly, because the problem is if you try to clean the whole LCD, just make sure you don't use anything like water or anything. I would actually say don't do it unless you can see just minor little spots here and there, because it can be a little bit tricky cleaning the LCD, but never use water at all. So in this case here, I'm just kind of like cleaning it out because I can see there's a few marks that I believe I can just get rid of. Because if you are doing this for yourself, it's okay, but sometimes most of the time we are doing this for customers, and customers tend to be going to be picky, because people are going to always see that little thing in there and say, oh, I've got this little thing there. So rather than having to redo the whole job, you just want to make sure everything is looking good as you go. So you sort of like try to put yourself in the mind of the customer. So you want to pretend you are the customer. How would you feel over a job that's been done? So that's why it's very important to try to be meticulous on this. Even though, as you can see, the digitizer comes with a adhesive strip, but we still apply a little bit of glue as well around it. This is, with experience, I realize if you don't do that, the iPad is always going to lift up. So we use the B7000 clear glue. You can just use that code to search for this one on Amazon, on eBay, or if you know a supplier, you can buy this. But with experience, it's very important to just do a thorough job, so that there is no room for the digitizer to lift up, because if the double-sided tape is not strong enough, what will happen is sometimes you get jobs that come, oh, it's lifting up. So we try to just do a job once and for all so that the job doesn't have to come back. But again, I'm doing this video just for the DIYs. So, and some professionals that might want to learn one or two things. There's always something to learn basically on these things. So yeah, so make sure it's nicely pressed in. And if you've got clamps, then you've got to actually leave it on clamps for probably maybe an hour or so. And you also want to we normally just use that alcohol-based solution, the isopropyl, to clean the sides, just for that, for the extra residue that would have overflown from pressing the digitizer. So just make sure it's clean. Everything has to look nice, and has to be done properly. It has to be done. We like to really put our heart and soul in doing this. And you want to obviously test it. So we've got, in this case, you don't have to worry about this, but we normally go through a checklist where you kind of like test everything and just make sure everything works well. If you're a store and you're looking at this video, don't always do your due diligence, because the last thing that you want is for a customer to come back and say, oh, this is not working. It's not a good starting. So you got to be able to test everything. Make sure you are pretty confident that everything is working as they should. And if there is anything that's not working, highlight to the customer, if that's something that probably could have just pre-existed. But otherwise, as a repairer, you gotta sort of like make sure at least you do your due diligence and make sure the customer is happy and satisfied when they get their iPad. Thanks for watching, guys, and be sure to like and subscribe and share the video. Thank you.